SaveWithConrad.com.
I'm Andy Cleveland from Appleton, Wisconsin. Longtime listener of the podcast. I listen to Something to Wrestle With, hearing all of the ads and things. We're at a spot where we wanted to refinance, and I know that's something that Conrad talks quite a bit about. We figured we'd give it a shot. I had a series of surgeries that were in a 15-month window, and it put us quite a bit with credit card debt. We had a lot of equity, over the years that built up in the house, so we wanted to take the equity out of the house and to pay off all those high interest credit card debts and get things back down to a manageable level per month. We worked with Larry and then Francis. It was awesome. Talking with Larry, everything was very helpful. Emails were fantastic, telling us what we needed to do. Francis was there to kind of nudge us along if we were dragging our feet a little bit. There's different forms and paperwork and things that you have to fill out. And anytime that we had a question, we would contact Frances by email, and she was just amazing. She helped us out, got those questions answered for us. You deal with other places they call, and you just feel like all they want to do is they just want to get the money, kind of take a piece of you. Working with Larry and Frances, it really felt they were helping us the whole way. They were very clear on what our intentions were and what we wanted, and they helped us meet our goals. So by doing this, much lower interest rate, everything is paid off, and now everything is so much more comfortable month to month. I'm Andy Cleveland from Appleton, Wisconsin, and I saved over $1,000 a month with SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender.
SaveWithConrad.com.
Hey guys, this is Paul Bromwell. Hell has frozen over, and here I am to introduce a remix of Grilling JR. That's right. You're still going to hear Conrad and Jim Ross, but they are not going to be here live today for this show. No, they're still on a Thanksgiving coma, hangover, whatever the word is. They had a great time, and they just wanted me to say on behalf of them, they will be back next week together. But in the meantime, the subject for this week's episode, a 2008 WWE Draft. Superstars move from Raw to Smackdown to ECW, all points in between, including JR himself, as he was drafted to Smackdown for the first time. You're going to get to hear JR's true and uncensored thoughts on this move. God, I can't wait. How it came to be, how much he really knew at ringside, all the good shit behind the scenes. Plus, he's going to share WWE 2008, what's going on at this point. Triple H, Batista, Umaga, Carlito, Matt, and Jeff Hardy, Michael Cole, Kane, others. CM Punk's there. So he's going to have plenty of thoughts on all of that and all those guys, as well as thoughts on Vince McMahon and so much more. So we hope you enjoy this fun episode with JR and Conrad.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grilling JR with the voice of wrestling, Jim Ross. Jim, what's going on, man? How are you?
Conrad, I couldn't be better if I was. I'd be two fat twins. I can tell you that right now. I had a hell of a day yesterday, my friend.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, sir. I got my new refrigerator installed. And these guys bringing it to me from Lowe's, right? And my handyman's there, Stevie Neighbor, the best I've ever been around. He says, they say, oh, my God, it won't fit. He measured all of it. So I love that he's talking smack to him. I said, boys, you're talking to a pro. That's a 30-second fix. So I was kind of relieved to hear that my wall didn't get rebuilt with my refrigerator in, but I had a good week. I've been doing some grilling, and I'm just having a great time.
Well, let's get into it, man. The draft went down in San Antonio, as you said, on June 23rd. There's going to be a supplemental draft on the 25th. And for that, the draft picks are randomly selected, but the first 11 picks of the draft were done live on Raw. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. This is the 6th WWE draft. Before we get into this one in particular, what did you think of the concept of a draft?
I thought the concept of having a draft to freshen up the various rosters. Remember, at that time, we had a Raw roster, SmackDown roster, and an ECW roster. I like the idea of being able to freshen it up and give the people that are fans of those particular programs something new and fresh, create some new matches. Wrestling fans love new. They love to be surprised. But certainly they love new. And I thought that the draft would be an opportunity to provide new to our fan base. And there's nothing more important than the fans. So in theory, Conrad, I like the concept of having a draft.
Yeah, I think everybody does. You know, it's an opportunity to sort of shuffle the deck. And these days it feels like, maybe Vince likes the idea, but he doesn't stick with it. I mean, now we've got this opportunity for guys to go back and forth after they just sort of reset the deck. Now it doesn't mean as much. And in talking about that concept with Bruce would say that sometimes Vince would just lay everything out on paper and like the way it looked. But then when, he actually put the pieces in place, he didn't like it. And, his attitude was, well, we can always change it. How frustrating was that for you when you're maybe sometimes having to go talk to talent and say, listen, I know, you've kind of got your travel situation where you've got a partner you've been running with, but we want to put a fresh coat of paint on you and we want to move you over here, and you sell it and get them excited and they go. And then Vince a week later says, no, I don't like it. Switch it back.
I learned early on not to tell him anything until it was etched in stone. And it's not etched in stone, unfortunately, until it's done.
Right.
So you just want to build up their hopes and anticipation. It's like saying, hey, you're going to get a bump on the cards this next pay-per-view. And man, is your payoff going to be great? Well, how can I say that? How do I know how many people are going to buy the pay-per-view? How do I know what the house is going to be until it's done? I can't do math in advance unless it sells out in advance type thing. And that was somewhat rare. It wasn't like the AEW show in Chicago coming up that you and I'll be at. So, it was just, it was one of those things you played your cards close to the vest. And a lot of people were pissed off, but they weren't ignorant like me and spoke up and write about it, blog about it, goddamn, just go on and on, where when I went back and did the research, I was kind of disappointed in my own actions, to be quite frank about it. But I thought I had justification. I still do, by the way. But a lot of people had rides. They travel together. People have to understand, when you're on the road as much as some of these men and women, and you get a system down, a riding system where this person rents the car and this person does this. Lawler and I had that, for example. So, I think that we upset travel. And here's the other thing. Nowadays, the ill-fated wrestling relationships,
yep,
which are always so tentative to begin with.
Yep.
No matter what somebody says, well, we're going to be different. I love him. I love her. I'd give up everything for her. Bullshit. You ain't giving up nothing, because we're all egomaniacs and we're all alpha males and alpha women. We're not giving up nothing. It's all about us. It's always been about us. And that lovey-dovey stuff it's a work in a large degree. Now, there have been some wrestling relationships that made it. God bless them. But boy, I can tell you, you just go back and do your history in WWE. When we brought 9s and 10s into our locker room, it changed the thinking of a whole lot of things. We've talked about that before. So I think that.
Wait, hang on. Are you saying 9s and 10s the way I think you are?
Yeah.
All right. Well, roll tide. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something there.
No, we didn't hire any,
Nope.
That was Vince's deal. Vince's thing of the women at that time was he wanted women that could theoretically,
be in Playboy.
Make a Playboy cover, not just in Playboy, make a cover.
Mm.
The cover was the key.
I got you.
So cover was where all the money was, because that way that face of that WWE superstar would be on these covers all over the country at newsstands and so forth and so on. So that was his deal. So that was the whole thing. The game changed. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. And I know it sounds old schoolish. And look, I'm not going to legislate anybody's relationship. I don't care if it's a gay relationship, a straight relationship, whatever, alternate lifestyle. I don't care. It's none of my business, man. It's none of my business. It's none of your business, folks. It's none of your business either. But I'm just telling you from history and precedent that wrestling relationships are a little challenging to deal with. And how we got there on this topic, I don't have a clue.
Well, we're talking about, splitting up folks and maybe moving them back and just, all the stress that the draft brings about. The other thing that happens on this show, though, that I got to tell you, when I first picked this as a topic, I kind of forgot it was happening here, It's going down in the middle of McMahon's millions. So the concept here is during the contest, McMahon is going to give away $1 million to WWE fans, and he's going to come out on stage and he's going to have a telephone, and he's going to dial a person and hopefully they answer. And if they do, and they know the password, then they could win $100,000. I can't believe that this was a real concept, much less one that happened in 2008. I know Vince did something similar to this years ago at one of the first In Your House events, and you guys gave away a house. But this whole McMahon's Millions, is this a Vince McMahon idea? Like, you know, he's looking for sort of the magic bullet to pump up some ratings, and he thinks, well, goddamn, let's just give away some cash.
It's all about the ratings. Everything they do is about the ratings. And same with any wrestling program. You want to get quality. Some people have more, I think AEW, for example, we're going to always try to have a great card and have great wrestling, but don't bullshit yourself, folks. It's always about the ratings when you're a television producer. And I believe that, there was a company that somebody contacted or got in contact with, they got in contact with WWE. There's a company that did these things because there's a lot of legal things that have to be adhered to. So that are just, so you don't get to screw people around. But I do pretty much recall that the monies we gave away was out of Vince's personal account. So I don't think it was WWE money. We'd been, publicly traded. He got fat and sassy, a lot of money, still got a lot of money. And, so I think it was his money that he did, and he didn't want to look bad on the company or raise eyebrows with the stockholders. So it was his cash, and but it was always about, can we increase the ratings with this contest, this tune-in contest? That's all it was. Radio stations do it every day.
Yeah, every day.
Tune in. Be the third caller here on FUCK Radio.
Oh my God, that's so fun. So the idea gets pitched, hey, let's give away some cash. And, is it Vince's idea, or does Vince just bite on somebody else's idea? Do you recall where this germ of an idea came from?
I don't. I think that, it was probably as a result of some sort of, brainstorming session to what can we do outside of wrestling to create an interest to get people to tune in. And how can we do this? Well, the one thing you can always go back to is in a brainstorming environment in that regard is how can we motivate them? Well, what motivates most people? Money. So it was a contest based on Vince's money, McMahon's millions. What do you call those things you start, like alliteration?
Yeah.
He loves alliterations, almost as much as one could perceive. He loves food and working out and whatever else he likes.
But, let's talk about that for a minute, because that's something that was very much the case. Brutus, Beefcake, Red Rooster. I mean, on and on and on, Texas Tornado. He really likes, you can go back as far as you want. It's just all over him. Why is that? Is that a McMahonism nobody really talks about?
It might be. I think he wants to continue to prove that he's the Walt Disney of wrestling, or in his world, he's the Walt Disney of sports entertainment, because it seems like there was a different points in his life where he's trying to separate himself or distance himself from the word wrestling, and that to me was a little bit distressing. But on the other hand, he's so smart, and a lot of his minions around him are so smart. There's always plausible deniability. No, that's not it. Here's the real reason. Well, one of the reasons he would say is that the word wrestling, in his view, was offensive to Wall Street, is offensive to advertisers, is offensive to programmers, in his view. I never agreed with that. I thought that they would look at wrestling like they would NASCAR or any other cult-like following entity. But I think it's just his thing, man. I don't know if it's a matter of his insecurity. I don't know if it's a matter of he's got a better idea. You got Kerry Von Erich coming in, who has a national name. The family's got a hell of a name. The Von Erich name has been prominent in wrestling since the 1950s. So you got established name identity talent, and he changed his name. And he can't just be about, well, it's the Wall Street thing, or we need to own all of our intellectual property. What people forget is that when you're under contract to WWE, and you're using a name that you had before WWE, that they still control your IP, intellectual property, while you're under contract to them. So the deal is that it seems like me that guys would say, well, when I leave here, I can't use this name. And I thought sometimes that was a little nearsighted on everybody's part. We shouldn't have. I don't know why that's happening, but it could be an ego thing, insecurities that I can create. I can recreate this son of a gun and make him or her bigger than ever, because this is the WWE and that's what we do.
We're going to take a quick time out right now, Jim, to talk about Home Chef. Man, the nights are getting chilly. The holiday decor is up. But I tell you what, Home Chef is still delivering new hearty recipes and your favorite comfort foods that are pairing perfectly for a cozy evening. That dreaded question, I know my wife's getting tired of it. What's for dinner? It's a struggle. It's so tempting just to order takeout, order that pizza, make the same boring meal. You don't have to do that with Home Chef. You can skip that mental load of meal planning, enjoy a home-cooked meal without the stress, all while saving money. They have fresh ingredients, chef-designed recipes conveniently to your doorstep to simplify the entire cooking experience. Users of leading meal kits have rated Home Chef, listen to this, #1 in quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. Listen, guys, that's for us. We can do it too. Whether you prefer classic meal kits with pre-portioned ingredients, quick 30-minute recipes, or oven-ready options, Home Chef has over 30 options a week and serves a variety of dietary needs. For a limited time right now, Home Chef is offering our listeners 18 free meals plus free dessert for life, and of course, free shipping on your first box. So go to homechef.com/JR. That's the critical piece right there. You need that /JR. That's homechef.com/JR for 18 free meals and free dessert for life. Homechef.com/JR. Must be an active subscriber to receive that free dessert.
Well, let's talk about the concept here of the winnings. It was written that one of the original ideas for the way the winnings would be broken down. One person gets 250 grand. Two people get 200,000. One person gets 125. One person gets 98,000. One gets 75,000. One gets $51,998. And one winner gets $2. Is that the most McMahon piece of humor we're going to talk about today?
It might be. Figure the logic in that deal. You can explore that one all you want, Conrad, but if you can come up with something that makes sense out of those numbers, other than the fact you add them all together, you get $1 million.
Right.
That's pretty much it. And quite honestly, I thought that the $2 winner was a little bit, was kind of half-ass entertaining, $2 bill type thing. So but still, you got to really stretch your imagination, and you got to really want to like this. And there's enough sycophants around there at that time, and I'm sure today, that, oh yeah, it's a great idea. Oh my God, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Okay, good. Well, good for you.
Meltzer.
Bless your heart.
Meltzer would be pretty critical of this. He would say the funny part of all this is even if the ratings artificially increase a little, WWE doesn't get any of the ad revenue in the first place. And as a gimmick, it's probably only going to work for a short period of time, and there's no guarantee it'll work at all. If we go with the idea that USA pays WWE $550,000 per week for a 3.2 rating, that makes the value of a rating point to USA about 172 grand, which is actually a hell of a bargain. And if this increases a 3.2 to a 3.4, McMahon will be spending $1 million for what USA has valued at something of about a $34,000 value. So he's breaking down the particulars of the finances of this decision. Does somebody in the inner circle raise their hand and say, hey, I know we can, but should we? I mean, is this a good investment? Or when Vince sort of gets his teeth sunk into something, it's just fucking happening no matter what, right?
Yes, absolutely. If you are in the booking committee, and you're sucking hind teeth there, or the chairman, you are going to not, in any kind of group environment, disagree with something he's very passionate about. And they don't have the conviction. They, meaning the committee, the booking, the writers, they're not going to cross the old man. And some, well, I used to. Well, no, you didn't. So you've been gone 10 years. You didn't do nothing. You wouldn't say shit with a mouthful, and you didn't. And I've been in the same position. I'm not saying, but I did. No, I didn't either. When he's that sold on something, Conrad, it is a done deal. And no one in upper management did the math that Meltzer did to tell you that this is probably not the greatest financial idea that you could come up with. And it wasn't.
Well, let's keep it moving here. Meltzer's going to say, because this contest starts on June 9th. And Meltzer says, even to McMahon, $1 million is a lot of money, particularly if you're giving it away every week. But he's rich enough that he can afford it. It seemed a high price to pay to try and jumpstart ratings, and no doubt seemed higher when the ratings came in. The June 9th show, the first week McMahon gave away $1 million, drew a 3.03 rating and 4.59 million. It appeared McMahon had decided with the economic state that a one-man lottery was key in trying to up the profile of a product that is not hurting, except the prime numbers they internally look at and determine the mood of the company. The ratings continue to slide. With no advertising beforehand, money being given away was also brought to house shows, with fans being picked out of the stands at the house shows in Reading and Stockton to be guest timekeepers and guest seconds, mostly picking out children and giving them each $200 for their efforts. And that's a nice gesture. I don't know that it encourages repeat ticket selling business when wrestling only comes to cities of that size once every few years, but it makes for a cool moment at the show. On Raw, McMahon gave away $1 million to 8 different people and making phone calls during the live show in Oakland, all of whom were watching the show and correctly answered WWE Universe as the password. The live crowd got up for it, reacting like they were at a game show and not booing like some had feared. And they didn't appear to be any complaints after the show from those watching it live. So the first time you guys pull this off, it's live TV. And if people aren't going to answer or there's long stretches here, I mean, this is a major departure from the in-ring wrestling product that we're used to. I mean, this is a totally different concept for Raw. You're sitting at the desk, are the seconds just creeping by and you think, God damn, this is bad, but then it's not received bad? Or what was your take from the desk as this is all going down?
I thought this promotion was designed by non-wrestling people,
right,
for a non-wrestling audience in the hopes of creating new viewers or getting disconnected viewers to return. It wasn't for a wrestling fan, in as much as I mean that it wasn't the reason that a real wrestling fan was going to tune in to Monday Night Raw because I might win part of this $1 million. That might be a distant caveat, but the reason wrestling fans watch a program such as many of us have produced and been a part of is because of the wrestling. And so when you don't want to be a wrestling company, that's kind of a conflict of interest here, in my view. Pardon me. So, to me, it was a disconnect. It was a little side thing that might've been okay. We made a huge deal out of it. It was $1 million, but I don't think it was a promotion designed for a true wrestling fan. And I still see those issues within our business where things are done that are done for a non-wrestling fan or not a fan of bell to bell action. Still to this very day, it's force fed, and it's not a good thing.
Let's talk about one of the follow-ups. Meltzer would write, WWE planned to fly all 8 winners to New York to do media with them, including a planned appearance on the Today Show and attending a press conference. I suspect they were looking at praising the success of the contest by noting the number of people signing up, but everyone knew the goal was to jump the rating, and it's going to be difficult for anyone to label week 1 as anything but a failure. So when you're trying this, it's an experiment to try to pop a rating. It doesn't work, but, hey, we spent $1 million on it. When the rating comes in, is everyone sort of scrambling to try to spin that this is still somehow positive, or do people recognize this as being a miss?
Well, I made sure that I did not talk about the rating to the old man, because I would have been somewhat honest, said, well, it was underwhelming. So I didn't want to go down that road. That wasn't a road I was willing to travel at that point in time. And as we will see later on in this discussion today, my outwardness and openness, honesty, sometimes was ill-advised, and it bit me in the ass. But nobody, when that rating came in, I don't know of anybody that flocked to get in line at Vince's office in Stanford to say, hey, congratulations, Chief. Great job. You know, because that would have really been, here's the thing about that too. He knows you're kissing his ass.
Right.
And he don't like it. He kind of likes it. It kind of feels good, but you don't want to, it's a one night stand thing. Okay, one night, we can handle that. But that's kind of what that was. It was a one night stand type deal. And so he liked that part of it. But then after the ratings came in, he thought about it. We'd already passed the point of no return, and he's, hell bent on maintaining the course. And the great promoters have always been willing to withdraw, like a great general, withdraw, regroup, and plan another attack that's going to work. And we did not do that. We steered the course because nobody wanted to admit publicly, especially to Vince, in private or public, that the idea sucked.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, especially knowing what we know about, his quirkiness at times. Let's keep going, and let's talk about some other news and notes in the company, specifically regarding Ric Flair. Now, you may remember Flair has his retirement match and swan song with WWE as far as being an in-ring performer at WrestleMania just a few months prior to this down in Florida, and had quite the send-off the night before at the Hall of Fame, and of course the day after WrestleMania on Raw. And now he's looking to take some dates outside of WWE, and that's allowed. Meltzer would write that he's going to appear at the NWA show at the Phillips Arena to be inducted in the NWA Wrestling Hall of Fame, along with the Midnight Express, Tommy Rich, Nikita Koloff, and the Iron Sheik. And Cornette is going to be giving a speech here as part of this. This goes down on June 6th. And the letter, of course, making the offer is, it's attractive. Let's run through it. The letter said Flair's guarantee is $10,000 plus a hotel suite and limo transportation to the event. Flair will pay his own trans to the event and bring merchandise bags with t-shirts, autographed photos, NWA swag, and sponsor merchandise. He'll appear at all the tapings, coming out after the third match on the show and doing an interview talking about the city in which the show was being taped. And the way the deal works is they're encouraging promoters to charge $100 for the meet and greet. So that would generate $20,000 with 200 people, which gives them a nearly $10,000 profit on the deal. And Flair appearing at that show will also help them sell some tickets. And a company has proposed a 30-date deal with Flair, which is going to mean he's essentially guaranteed $300,000. So he's making deals with the NWA to not only appear at their Hall of Fame, but to hit some different shows across America. And this is all happening while he's under contract with WWE for somewhere in the market of $500,000 a year, just as an ambassador. And seemingly just as fast as the deal came together, it falls apart. Of course, it is a Vince McMahon call, not wanting his wrestler to give credibility to a Hall of Fame other than his own. And he doesn't want one of his biggest stars appearing at some other shows, signing autographs. We know that ultimately this is going to be the beginning of the end of the WWE Ric Flair relationship for a little while. Were you surprised that this thing ever got off the ground? Did Rick ask permission or get a green light, or how did this get sideways so fast?
I don't know, man. I was surprised that, to answer your question, yes, I was surprised that it took off so fast. And it was a little bit, knowing Vince's mindset on other promotions, that I was surprised that it was even being discussed, because I had assumed that Rick had sat down with Vince and said, hey, I got this opportunity. I can make some good money, blah, blah, blah. And Vince said, oh, go ahead, pal. Go ahead, pal. No problem. You've earned it. So, but apparently that conversation never took place. So I don't know who Rick talked to. And maybe he assumed that he was eligible to do this thing. And maybe he was theoretically, but then of course he's still on paper to WWE. Vince McMahon's got control.
Right.
So that's kind of where that was. I don't know where Rick got the thought. I know Bob Trovich is an attorney. He was an NWA guy for years and years. One of the players down there in Georgia back in the day. So it may have been that. Maybe Trovich had an idea. Well, now that Rick's retired from WWE, maybe he's eligible to do other things. And if he can do other things as we think he can, this will be a neat idea. Plus, he'll make, as you said, $300 grand for this project. So I think there was a lot of assumption going on, assuming it was going to be okay. But then when Vince thought about it, like he does so many times, he's going to see that good. We talk about plausible deniability. Why did you do that? I'm protecting my brand. That's what he would say. I'm protecting my brand. So here's my problem with that. Protect your brand by growing your brand. Don't protect your brand by stymieing the growth of other companies, because it's not good for the overall wrestling business. And whether you like it or not, Mr. Sports Entertainment, you are still in the wrestling business.
JR, we have to take a break right now and talk about Tecovas. You want to talk about stylish, cool, comfortable looking boots? They know what they're doing. Born in Texas in 2015, they make it easy one for anyone to find your perfect boot. Every one of Tecovas boots are handcrafted with over 200 meticulous steps for broken in comfort right out of the box. Whether it's a long day or a big night out on the town, your Tecovas are built to last and impress. That's why Esquire loves them and says there's a reason we keep coming back to Tecovas, and I can vouch for it, man. I broke out a pair the other night. The wife and I went out on the town, and I got more than a few compliments on these boots. Guys, you need to go out, grab you a pair now. You owe it to your feet to put on a pair at Tecovas. Plus, they have the best in the West guarantee. You get free returns and exchanges for 30 days. So let's talk about how you can make sure you can get your hands on a pair and get a great deal. Because right now, you can get 10% off at tecovas.com/GrillingJR, all one word, when you sign up for email and text. That's 10% off at tecovas.com/GrillingJR. Tecovas.com/GrillingJR. See site for details. Tecovas, point your toes west.
I do want to, let's just get right into it, because you were pretty vocal, and it's reported on by Meltzer. Jim Ross noted that announcers can be included in the draft, and that's not something he's happy about. Quote, I can't speak for the King, but I'm personally not interested in leaving Monday Night Raw. I hope that I didn't just jinx myself. Working regularly on another broadcast would feel strange at this stage of my game. Ross is believed to be financially secure, as he has had a lot of big years when he worked full-time as head of talent relations and still earns a solid income doing Raw, working as a consultant and doing payroll. It's been clear for nearly a decade that he was More there because they've been able to find a replacement who fully understands the role in a youth-oriented television business, with Michael Cole, Jonathan Coachman, Joey Styles, Mike Goldberg, and most recently, Mike Adamle, all either hired or put in the position to be his replacement. So we're going to talk about this a lot later, but in hindsight, when you look back and read that you wrote that, God dang, don't you think that Vince McMahon at that point almost took it like a fucking personal challenge to do it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Conrad. You're very perceptive, and that's exactly right. It was my mistake to write that because inadvertently I challenged him. I have just always been so open with my fan base, and because I'm still a fan, so we have a lot in common with me and these folks called wrestling fans. And I love them, but God dang, man, I messed up. I should not have ever. I didn't perceive that his ego was so goddamn fragile that he would take this as a personal challenge, because he and I had never had one conversation about me moving from Raw to SmackDown, not one. But I wrote that, I guess maybe with my fingers crossed that, well, this can't happen to me.
Right.
And I shouldn't have been as honest and upfront, sharing my feelings and thoughts with the people that read my blog at that time. And I screwed up in hindsight. I didn't set out to screw up. I didn't say, okay, I'm going to write this so I can see if I can piss Vince off.
Sure.
But it did, apparently. And I wish I had not done it.
Well, I'm sure we're going to talk about it a little more later. The final Sunday Night Heat show was taped on May 26th in Denver. Sunday Night Heat was an interesting concept. I mean, I guess at this point it's been around for 10 years or so. Are there any interesting Sunday Night Heat memories that you can recall?
None. It was another show. It became to run together where it didn't have a lot of individuality or exclusivity. So it became another WWE branded show. Same camera angles, same graphic fonts, same or similar. Nothing really stood out on those shows to me, other than it aired on Sunday night and it was a weekly show and all that good stuff. But no, nothing. It was unspectacular. Although there were times we had some good matches, I'm sure. Can't remember any of them right now. But to me, it was just another cookie cutter wrestling show, because at that time, WWE was producing so much television that they didn't have time to venture too far outside the framework of their established formats. Therefore, things kept looking the same, and I never think that's a good idea. You can't look the same. People want new. We talked about this earlier. Fans want new. So give them some new every now and then, and that can be in formats, lighting, graphics, music, pyro, but really it comes back down to, are you going to give them some good matches, at least one good match in that 1 hour show? And sometimes we had it, sometimes we delivered, sometimes we didn't. And sometimes you got to remember too, we talk about the AEW show Saturday night in Daytona, where these young kids are going to get their opportunity. Once the bell starts, it's up to them, man. They can't blame another soul in the world but themselves if they don't do great. Because it's all coming back to my point. It's all coming back to bell, and nothing bell to bell strikes me as something spectacular on Sunday Night Heat.
Well, something that was spectacular is that you guys are getting your first major network coverage in Australia in years, going to the middle of June. And you're going to start having a Sunday 3 p.m. slot on Channel 9, which is the #1 station in the country. And the company had never been on the country's main station. They'd been on Channel 10 during the 80s and for a few weeks in 2000, but ultimately it was canceled. But way back when, Jim Barnett's World Championship Wrestling promotion in the 60s and 70s, during the golden age of wrestling, it aired here on Channel 9, as did the U.S. version of WCW in the 90s. How big of a deal is this for you to get a major clearance like this in Australia?
Huge to help put another brick in the foundation of the company's global growth. Australia's still untapped in a lot of ways. You and I should go down there sometime and do some shows. I'm sure we'd do well, and the fans would enjoy it. It's got a long tradition. And, when Mr. Barnett had his thing going there a couple of years, oh my God, I printed money. And he did print money. He had a great eye for bringing in top talents. You look at that roster of talents that Barnett brought in for Channel 10, or Channel 10, or Channel 9. I'm sorry. He had an uncanny eye for talent, and I talked to Jerry Briscoe and I talked to Jack Briscoe, who both had some time there, and talking about how cool it was. They flew to all the shots, and they, great treatment. Stayed in hotels that were really, really nice, full time, and it was just great. They loved it. The guys loved that booking. It was just so far from home, you couldn't get back home when your tour was over. In all reality, so it was big, man. It was big, and I think again, it's still an untapped market, and it should be cultivated more by somebody. But I'm a big proponent of the Australian fan base and what they have grown up to, and that's what happens when your number one wrestling show is on your number one television station that goes from border to border and coast to coast, as Mean Gene used to say. It embeds. It's like the towns like Minneapolis was the headquarters of AWA. Still Minneapolis, as one example, like Dallas, Von Erichs, Minneapolis with Vern Gagne. It has tradition, and it means something when you're the hub of a territory. So I thought that was a hell of a deal. I don't know that we capitalized on it very well, but again, the geography may have something to do with that. But I thought it was a hit, big score for us.
No arguing there. Big score for D'Lo Brown too, who's going to get a shot to come back. He's signed here. I think most people think of D'Lo as being there from like 97 to 03. But he's coming back here, and Meltzer would write, most likely this is part of Vince's wanting African Americans on television. Part of it is because of a decrease in the demo and the ratings, and part with Booker and Lashley leaving and any racism controversy stemming from having Hayes on the creative team makes them a sitting duck for future controversy if they don't push African Americans. Whether justified or not, WCW was taken to the cleaners, and it wasn't justified that there are any more or less than it would be justified as here now that Hayes is a public target and is being brought back. So I guess we should briefly mention that there's a conversation that goes down, I believe after WrestleMania weekend with Mark Henry and Michael Hayes. And the fallout of that is Hayes goes home, but after being in timeout and paying the consequence and losing his title and some stock options and whatever other ramifications there were, they're making a play to bring him back here because he was a valuable contributor to the team. Is bringing in a D'Lo Brown, as Dave Meltzer is saying, a sort of a CYA moment for WWE?
Yeah, pretty much. Although I've always said D'Lo's a very underrated talent. I liked his work. Again, we talked about the infamous chest protector that we put on him. It was my idea, good or bad. And but D'Lo's a very underrated talent. So, but the fact that D'Lo was a college guy, well-spoken, former college football player, a lot of good things to talk about and build about. You want to if you're going to have a black baby face, he's got to be a role model type guy, because, no matter your color, your ethnicity is irrelevant. We're all looking for positive role models for the younger fan base. And, and D'Lo could have certainly been that. But yeah, it was part of that whole plan. And, in Michael Hayes' defense, not defending his racist, the comments that he made to Mark Henry. First of all, Michael's very, very lucky that Mark Henry didn't break him in half, because that would not take him very long. But Mark did not, out of respect. And, but I think a lot of that right there, I might be wrong about this, Conrad. I think some of that racial rant that Hayes allegedly had with Mark Henry was alcohol fueled, because Michael would, he was a Jägermeister guy at one time, and he still could be not. He still thought he had to be a free bird. He didn't. Free birds have passed. God bless him. But I think that Michael stopped the excessive drinking. I think that it helped a lot of his issues there, because I don't perceive that Michael's got a bad heart. But, sometimes we're products of our environment. That's no excuse now, folks. It's no excuse. But, Michael's raised in in Pensacola area and the South. And, there was a culture cultivated there. Conrad, hell, you're living in Alabama, I've less of it for Oklahoma because we have more Native American issues than we had African American issues here, by and large. But I think Michael's issues were the drinking thing. But yeah, so Michael came back, rehabilitated, different mindset, clean and sober, and so he's been there ever since. So it was a good save, and he got a second chance, and luckily for him, he's made the most of it. But that whole issue was a very tentative. It was just very implosiveness was what the word I would use. It could implode at any time, but we needed to become more diverse. And instead of that old wrestling promoter thing where it said, well, we've got one, meaning we've got one black on our roster, that's all we need. I've heard that conversation had with bookers and territory owners in person on more than one occasion. And it wasn't from Cowboy, who's has a reputation of being a racist by the Hank Aaron thing and all that stuff. He's probably the most open-minded guy of the ones I'm thinking about, because Bill didn't have any quota on how many African Americans could be in Mid-South, none whatsoever. So but it was an interesting time. Yeah. So that the idea of getting more diverse was smart, but it took something somewhat drastic to get them to move the needle. And that in itself was unfortunate.
Two things I want to ask about that, 'cause I don't know when we'll talk about, race and WWE again. I heard through the grapevine years ago that, when Stuart Scott passed away and ESPN, gave a lot of praise and well-due respect to all of his contributions, that sort of struck a chord with Vince, and Vince had almost like an edict that there's gotta be an African-American on all of our shows behind the desk. So we saw, if you go back to your timeline, you see, David and Byron and a lot of other guys added to that announce desk, where once upon a time it was a 2-man booth. Well, now it's a 3 or maybe even a 4, because we want to make sure that we have our sort of Stuart Scott. Did you hear that? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Stuart Scott was an amazing human being. He connected with everybody, seemingly to me, black or white.
Right.
And any other color you want to create. So that was, I could get that. I felt very moved because Stuart had small children. He battled cancer so gallantly. And so he was really a special individual, not just a talent, but a human being. I think that whole thing kind of got Vince's attention. But again, you have to ask the question. And I don't know if I don't think I have the answer. Why did it take so long?
Right.
Why did it take things like this to open everybody's eyes that we can be so much better, we can be so much more diverse, we can provide more opportunities for everybody, no matter their skin color. If they got the talent, they should be booked, no matter what their skin tone might be. It should be irrelevant, but that's my point of this whole deal. Why did it take certain triggers to be utilized before I was there too, we all made that decision? Because remember, I came from a territory with a black booker, a black top babyface, a top black heel. The whole Mid-South was a different ballgame. So I was, Cowboy's favorite color was not black or white, it was green. And so, and if you were a person of any color, and you can put an ass every 18 inches, since we talked about that earlier, you're a star when you sell tickets. You're a star when you put an ass every 18 inches, because that's how we all made our money, was on ticket sales. That was it. So, I just, it's sad, but here's the good thing about it. To not throw WWE on the bus, they've done a hell of a job now with diversity. And I think it's time. I applaud them for that, and I hope that they continue. And I think any black athlete would say, we don't want to be here just because of our skin color. We want to be here because we can play. We want to be here because we can contribute. We're going to be here because we're good at what we do. That's the thing. And so hopefully that growth will continue as we move forward.
Let me ask about the Hall of Fame. That's the last thing I want to touch on race briefly. It feels like there is almost a formula now for, the way they roll these inductions out. You got to have one tag team. You got to have one lady. You got to have one African American.
Yep. Fill the quotas, check all the boxes. The tag team thing is probably the least, probably the priority number 3.
Right.
But the female and a person of color is essential. And so sometimes you wonder, are we getting the best class for what on their own merits, or we already have, so we can't have 2 females because we already have one? The same old deal. Back to the same. We got one. Same thing with same thing with the black situation. Well, we got a black, so we don't need any more black Hall of Famers. And I think that's the thing that stands out there. And I've heard Hall of Fame guys talk about this, and begrudgingly to me, I had to listen, is when Coco Ware got inducted into the Hall of Fame. A lot of people didn't think Coco was deserving of it.
Right.
But he got in because he was African American. And, there's always going to be some of that discussion going on. But I think that's why I don't know how do you address this, Conrad? How would you address this thing? Would you say, why don't we just get the best class?
Yeah.
Maybe you got 5 blacks. Who cares if they all deserve to go in? Does it matter? It doesn't matter in the NFL. It sure as hell doesn't matter in the NBA. So why should it matter to a fictional sport? I don't get it. It's all about casting, so all that can be controlled. It's all of it subjective casting, and I think that should be reevaluated.
Well, you guys are going to be casting a new head of legal, senior vice president, because Ed Kaufman, he's going to be leaving the company imminently, according to Meltzer's report. He says, not sure of the reasons or whose choice it was, but he was one of those guys who showed up at 7 a.m. and he's still there at 7 p.m. He's on call constantly, even on the weekends, because the company always had some kind of legal issue. Ed Kaufman is a name that maybe a lot of people aren't familiar with, but he was with the company for a while. What leads to his departure here?
I don't know if there's one incident that he dropped the ball on, or the perception was that he dropped the ball. And I think maybe some semblance to my situation. I think sometimes Vince just gets tired of you. And people are going to say, well, that's not a good reason. No, of course it's not a good reason. But when you own the game, you own the ball, you own the uniforms, you own the teams, you own the stadiums, then you can do that. So I think that Ed probably somewhere along the way, I would say this, it's probably more of a cumulative thing. And Ed's communication skills, when he probably disagreed with Vince or said, Vince, we shouldn't do this, and here's why, might not have been as to Vince's liking. And so cumulatively over time, all that adds up, and boom, there you go. So, I think a lot of it is just he gets bored, he gets tired of you, and the little things accumulate, and then there you are. So Ed did a good job. Ed did a good job. We were growing like crazy. I was hiring talent right and left, getting contracts done. We had a deal there. It was just a good system. Ed and I met every Thursday, without fail, every Thursday. And I would meet with Ed, Liz DeFabio, who was Linda's assistant, and Beth Zaza, who was Vince's assistant. And we met every Thursday in my office at 10 a.m. And we'd go over everything, the legal side, whatever. And if there were things on their agenda they wanted to ask me about regarding talent, we talked about. But we always had great meetings. I love those. Those are probably my favorite meetings there because they were objective. They were lighthearted. Nobody stood on ceremony. It's good stuff. Ed did a nice job. I just think he got caught in a tough situation where Vince got tired of looking at him. Hey, there's been he's not the only guy that happened to, and I'm not even talking about me, but that's what you have. You have a very eccentric, unique owner, and sometimes they make very eccentric, unique decisions.
Let's talk a little bit about the next $1 million giveaway. It's June 17th. It does a 3.3 rating, 5.21 million viewers. In case you're keeping up, that's better. The rating is actually the best for Raw since April 7th, which is the most viewers for a Raw episode since the Flair retirement show the day after WrestleMania. The average viewer age is 35 years old, 69% male, and they do a 3.3 rating in that male 18 to 49 demo, which is up 10% from the prior September. And McMahon is interviewed by The Score, which is the company's Canadian broadcast partner. And he's talking about this concept. And he says, sometimes even I can't believe the ideas we come up with. And this is not necessarily one of my better ideas, giving away my personal money. It's a total of 1 million every Monday night. Last week we had one lady from Texas win $2, and we had another gentleman from Wisconsin win 250,000. And I must admit, it gave me more pleasure to give away $2 than it did the 250,000. Surprise.
Yeah. Mr. McMahon, he's staying in character, speaking in plausible truths. It probably wasn't his best idea. Obviously it wasn't his best idea, but, one thing handed to Vince, there's a reason he was the number one heel we had in the Attitude Era. He was good at it. He loved it. He embraced it. He stayed in character, and he didn't play a fictional person. He played an extension of himself, only ratcheted up. So, I applaud the fact that he did that. But that show got a good rating. Here's the other thing about that. What was on the card that night? What have we built to push that card? So I don't know that sometimes the $1 million giveaway gets credit when it might not deserve all that credit, and it sure as hell got some blame when it probably didn't deserve all the blame. If we had booked cards that people wanted to see, or couldn't miss this match, couldn't miss how this scenario has evolved and developed, that's still where they tune in. So I was never a big fan of this $1 million thing. It just took away from what we did. It took away from our core product, so that we could be more sports entertainment oriented, and we didn't cater to the diehard wrestling fan, our core audience. That whatever you do, folks, you're a marketer, and you can discover who your audience is, and you figure out your ways to reach them. You're a good marketer then, but never take your core for granted, because they can damn sure move their address elsewhere.
Let's talk about Mando right now, because I'm telling you what, when you talk about whole body odor control, this deodorant packs a punch. Your balls, they stink. I mean, come on. Even when you wash them, it doesn't last for 24 hours. No, but that's where Mando steps in. I love Mando. I love the cream, the different fragrances. They have done a great job with this product, and you can take advantage of it too. Think about it. Think about all day at work, whether you sit in the office, whether you're out doing manual labor, whatever the case may be, pits, balls, other areas of the body that produce that stanky ass feel. Mando can step in and take care of all that for you. Listen, it's safe to use anywhere. Pits, balls, thigh folds, belly buttons, butt cracks, and feet. My goodness, it was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated, and it's clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. Guys, trust me, your girlfriends, your lady friends, whoever that special someone is in your life, they want you to freaking use this product. So don't delay anymore. You're going to that wrestling convention. You're snuggling up to those pretty ladies, asking for those photo ops. Do you want to smell like ass? I don't think so. They don't want you to smell like ass, feet, and corn chips. No. So you need to purchase Mando right now. So take advantage of it. The starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant. You get the cream tube deodorant. You get 2 free products of your choice. They have a few things you can choose from: the mini body wash, deodorant wipes. Who doesn't love those on the run? And guess what? All free shipping. As a special offer for the listeners of this show, Grilling JR, you'll get $5 off that starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code JR at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them that Grilling JR sent you. You'll smell fresher. You'll stay drier. Your confidence will be through the roof from head to toe with Mando.
Let's talk about an award that McMahon won. And this is the most McMahon story we'll probably cover today. Vince McMahon morphed into Mr. McMahon when getting a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Promax DBA conference for his work in global marketing, advertising, and promotion. In his speech, he said, "I truly deserve this." It's probably something you won't hear anybody else say. And when they asked him how he came up with the $1 million giveaway idea, he says, "That process is called insanity." And he does say that ideas take more than 3 weeks to work, and you can never dictate to your audience, but rather you have to give your audience what it is they want, but not be afraid to take risks. And Meltzer would say, "That's so funny because in creative, everyone is of the impression that they dictate to their audience and use the audience feedback to a degree, but virtually everyone in creative has said their job is to create what they think Vince McMahon wants and not necessarily what they think the audience wants."
Well, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
So, that's accurate. That's accurate.
A friend of yours, 3 years ago told me at this point, nothing else matters. We're all playing for an audience of one.
Yeah.
And that just, I don't know why, but the way he delivered that, he or she rather, I was like, oh man, I never really thought about that. But I mean, that's what everybody's looking for. Yeah. It's nice to have the crowd reaction. Yeah. You want the rating, but what you really want is when you come through the curtain and Gorilla and look over at the headset and you get the big thumbs up. That's all that matters, right?
Bingo. Exactly. It is an audience of one. And my thoughts are on that. My questions would be, in response to that is, regarding that decision and that philosophy, is it because Vince is so insecure that if it's not his idea, then it's not a good idea? Hence changing the names of established talents that came in, we mentioned Texas Tornado earlier. Or is it the fact that he just doesn't have the confidence in his team around him to allow them to make decisions and to create content? And so, because he's such a smart man that anybody knows in a creative world, Conrad, that the last thing you want to do is to piss in the Cheerios. It's just, Cheerio goes better with milk than piss. So why are we putting a negative cloud, a black cloud, if you will, over creative? Come up with all the stuff you want to come up with. But then you still go back to that one thing. Does Vince like it? And so again, you go back. So now if I want to continue on my tenure, you think Ed Koski's been there forever, as a writer, wants to, piss in Vince's Cheerios? Of course not. He's a smart guy. So I think that, it's a culture there in that regard that may not be the healthiest for creative and the creative process, because again, black cloud's got to go away when you're creating. Doesn't mean you're going to have to use every idea, but you got to let people have free flowing thought to create neat things. And you got to plan, which they don't do now, seemingly. Everything seems to be liquid. You got to plan long term. I love the fact that when we did our show, Starcast, and we had the big show for AEW, Double or Nothing, that the plan was already in place for what they're going to do on their next big show, which is Labor Day weekend in Chicago. The plan was in place. And I didn't ask all the questions I probably could have asked. I didn't. But I know that the game plan was in place. And I can tell you that for my last several years in WWE, that would not have been the case.
I got to tell you that the thing that I sort of cringed at watching this, and it went better than I remembered when we watched this draft show, was the making phone calls part, because I've seen that go so poorly on some of the other shows that they tried this on. I know back in like SummerSlam 97, Pettingill was trying to give away something with Stride X or whatever too. Meltzer would write this: even though it appeared things had changed regarding the phone calls being fixed on the Raw giveaway, the company handling the prizes and giving Vince the phone numbers had contacted all the people about an hour before the show was to start in order to make sure that they would be home and watching the show. They weren't told when they would be called or what prize they could be winning, but were told to stay by the phone and to make sure and watch the show. That sort of seems like a no-brainer. Why did that take a few weeks for people to figure out?
Because I don't think it was important enough in their lives or important enough as a fan to give a damn. I don't know that people, I just don't see, nobody made an emotional investment in the damn thing. If they had, we'd have had huge ratings. We'd have done 4s or something, or big numbers, which again, in today's world seems small compared to what we did in the Attitude Era. But that Attitude Era is the one where there's a lot more talent in the locker room by their own admission than there was in the Attitude Era. The difference is the Attitude Era guys actually sold tickets. They sold out the Garden on Christmas week, that type thing. There's a lot of little benchmarks, little things you can check off. Did this happen? Nope. Nope. But we're over. We're making a lot of money. So, I don't know. It was, again, it's a basic old radio tune-in thing, man. That's all it was. And it just didn't feel organic. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel like, again, the wrestling fan was being catered to. And you can't stop catering to your fan base. You just can't.
You and Jerry Lawler are going to introduce the show, and you explained that after every match tonight, the winner will get to draft a wrestler to his brand. That's a fun concept and adds a new, nice little dimension to the draft. Michael Cole and Mick Foley then talked briefly and were followed up by Mike Adamle and Taz. So we've got 3 sets of announcers here on the. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Jim, is when I watched this back for the first time in a long time this week, is I heard near the top of the show, Mick Foley sort of suggests, hey, by the end of the show, I might be broadcasting with Jim Ross.
Yeah, he was.
Now, of course, I didn't know that was going to happen, but you got to think he knew, and he was just.
I don't know that he knew. I don't think so. I think that's just Mick asking questions, posing more questions or scenarios that may or not happen that were all, plausible. It could happen because all the announcers were eligible for the draft. So, I don't know that he knew. I don't think he knew. That's my take on that deal, because he and I discussed this before, and, I enjoyed working with Mick. And of course, Mick didn't last long after we started doing that show because he couldn't take the way he was produced and how he was spoken to. So that was short-lived anyway, but I don't think he knew, Conrad. I really don't.
Our first match is Triple H and Mark Henry. You and Foley do commentary on this match. We haven't talked about you broadcasting with Foley before. How was he as a broadcast partner?
Good. Such unless he screamed at or belittled, he was always so even keel, and he had no issues endorsing a talent. In other words, in the old wrestling vernacular, getting talent over. Mick was very good at that. It's his work in the ring and his work at the announce desk. He had a great future there. Hey, look, he's a brilliant guy. He's writing books. He's a wordsmith. He's got a good grasp of the vocabulary. He has great product knowledge. And so, he's probably the only guy in the business who could make me look half-assed good looking. And that takes some work. But I love working with him because he's just a reliable guy, and he loved what he did until it ended. And that sounds ridiculous, I guess, but maybe that's all of us. But it just did not end well for him in that role. And so but he was fun, man. He's a good dude. And he's funny. He didn't want to be dramatic. He just had a good sense of timing.
Well, here's a surprise. Triple H won. Oh, can't believe it. So Raw wins the draft pick, and it's a random selection, and it comes up Rey Mysterio, and Rey comes down the ramp, slaps some hands of the fans, and you say you don't know how they could have started any more significantly. And then Rey shakes Hunter's hands, and now it's Lawler plugging that McMahon's $1 Million Mania is next. Vince comes out, talks about Rey being drafted, explains the rules of the contest. There's going to be 5 people who win $100K each, and one person will win 500,000 smackers, he says. And he has Kelly help him with the giveaway. How do you think Kelly did here?
Oh, she could, I don't know. She could just be staring at things and do good for me. She's a beautiful, was, and always will be one of the most beautiful women that we ever signed. Great smile. Really good. Where's my Blue Chew? God damn it. Kelly is great. And she did wonderful, but he's got to get his own Vanna White. That's what he had to do. And so she was perfect for that role. I'm surprised that somebody in Hollywood didn't snatch her up.
Well, Vince snatched her up and has her as the assistant here. And then when they get the caller on the phone, she says the password was Night of Champions, and Vince laughs and says, that's not the password and you're a loser. And Lawler interjects that it was right. And then Kelly corrects Vince and says, no, that's right. So he says he stands corrected, awards her the money, and Kelly begins dancing. What a fucking segment.
Yeah, I know. It was a train wreck. Maybe train wrecks are good sometimes. I don't disagree with that, but yeah, it didn't start off too auspiciously, did it?
It did not. We've got a little bit of a backstage interaction with John Cena and Triple H here. And then we're going to talk about Lance Cade and Chris Jericho. Triple H says they've tiptoed around things, but now it's personal. You're never going to be as good as me. And they're trying to set up the world title feud with him and John Cena. Our next match is Santino Morello and Carlito taking on Fit Finlay and Hornswoggle. This match is, I guess it is what it is. Got a little bit of humor in here. Got a tadpole splash for the win. And then Smackdown drafts Jeff Hardy, who's randomly selected on the big screen. So essentially Ray and Jeff Hardy are going to flip flop. Randy Orton walks out, joins McMahon on the stage. He's got his arm in a sling and he's saying that he's going to be back and he's better than ever. And he's only here because he's forced to be here for the draft. And he's got a message for Cena and Triple H. He doesn't care who's champion because when he's back, he's going to be champion again. And here we go. We're going to give away $100,000. Then he asks, hey, who's going to win, Edge or John Cena? Because he is announcing that the main event tonight is Edge and John Cena for Edge's title. She of course says, Triple H is going to win at the pay-per-view. And then you got to start hyping Edge and Cena in a 15-man tri-branded battle royal. So I guess 5 guys from each brand. Yeah. And the winner will get 2 draft picks. The next match, man, this was weird to watch. Cody Rhodes teaming with Hardcore Holly to take on Chavo Guerrero and Bam Neely, and Ted DiBiase Jr. is going to join on commentary. Knowing what we know now, watching wrestling from 11 years ago, it's kind of weird.
In what way?
I don't know. It's just weird to see Cody Rhodes not being the Cody Rhodes that we know of AEW, and seeing teaming with Hardcore Holly. That almost seems like a fever dream. And Ted DiBiase Jr., who once had such an upside and you thought was going to be a fixture in the business for a long time. Fast forward to today, not even in the business at all. Bam Neely, I don't know that I could have picked him out of a lineup. I mean, it's weird how much wrestling changes in just 10 years. Yeah, you're right. It does. And the evolution of the business is that way. And I like it, quite frankly, as long as you are true to the core, as long as you're true to the fundamentals of the game. And of course, I'm not going to get started on that. I'll sound like John Conrad. God damn it, Conrad. You pissed me off, you fat bastard. Goddamn Kenny and me. So, it's him. I can't, I'm with you. It has changed. And you're perceptive to fucking see that. I appreciate that. You're right. It has changed a lot, but that's good. It's good as long as you protect your home base. But when you start building little outbuildings for your entertainment fans, it takes away the focus on home base. And that's a problem. Well, CM Punk is out next. He's drafted to Raw. So he's going to walk onto the stage. He's got his Money in the Bank briefcase from WrestleMania. And then we see Jericho walk to the ring wearing a very, very 2008 shirt. And he says that Shawn Michaels' medical condition has been kept somewhat under wraps. And we're, of course, building to probably one of the better feuds that nobody really talks about with Jericho and Shawn Michaels. And we're getting some clips from before where, he was throwing him into the Geratron 2000 or whatever it is. And he's going to involve Lance Cade here because Lance Cade has inserted himself into this. Of course, he was one of the trainees for Shawn Michaels Wrestling Academy, 7 or 8 years prior to this. And he's going to interview Cade on the big screen, and Cade's going to acknowledge the past. And he's going to say, unlike Shawn, Chris, you're a man. You tell it like it is. You're someone I can trust. And he has this nasty attitude towards Shawn because he knew if he ever made it big, Shawn would pretend to be his friend, but really try to undermine him and turn his back on him. And, now that we're, present day, Shawn Michaels music is going to play and he's going to jump Jericho. And, this is just good stuff. I don't think enough people talk about this feud from 2008. But it is one of the more well done angles of the year.
Two great talents, loved to work with each other, as I understood it. Had great chemistry. They had the one trait that you got to have in an issue like that, and that is to be unselfish. So they sold for each other well. They reacted to the other's moves, their move sets, their signature things well. So yeah, that was a great booking, and you're not going to be that's just a great memory. But Conrad, you're right. People that haven't experienced the Shawn Michaels Chris Jericho rivalry storyline in that period of time should go back and re-examine it, because I never saw those guys have a bad outing. They just had it. And they also had this. They also had big egos, and they also had this alpha male swagger, because neither guy was a giant. Neither guy was 6'3", 260. They had always had a chip on their shoulder, which I love. So that was a show stealer almost every night that they worked. There's nothing else on the card that was going to be better than HBK and Y2J. Just wasn't.
Yeah, go out of your way to see this angle. This is another piece of it. Jericho's going to throw Shawn Michaels bad back into the corner of the announce table. Michaels is going to wince and grab his eye, and he's in bad pain. They're really getting over he's got a bad back, and Jericho's just re-injured it. Good stuff here. Taz is going to join Michael Cole on commentary, and he's going to say that ECW can't be happy about losing Punk. Then we're going to get Vicky Guerrero before the next match. She's going to be wheeled out by Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. And she says that originally Ryder and Hawkins were going to be opponents for Miz and Morrison, but recent events have changed that. She returns to the back and the Hardy Boys music plays. So Matt Hardy is going to be joined on stage by Jeff Hardy, and it's Miz and Morrison and the Hardys here instead. I find this interesting because we're essentially splitting up the Hardys. At the conclusion of this match, Matt Hardy is going to go to ECW. Jeff Hardy has just switched over to SmackDown, but we're putting them together just one last time. What do you think of that?
Didn't have a problem with it. So assuming we don't know that Matt's going to be drafted, it was another Hardy Boys match. The only thing we knew conclusively was that Jeff was changing brands. But I don't know that. I just believe, again, old school thinking, the Hardy Boys are a unit. They're as one. It's like the Briscoes, and including the Briscoes and ECW are in Ring of Honor now, who I like. But the Jack and Jerry, you just expect to see one without the other. When I read old clippings, I see Jerry was in a tag with somebody else. That was only because Jack wasn't available. He was on the road oftentimes as the NWA champion. So I just always felt like the Hardys have more value to the company together than they did separately. Of course, there is exception. When I remember the match we called, Jerry Lawler and I called with Undertaker and Jeff Hardy was one of the more memorable moments of WWE television for me. But Jeff always was the one that seemed to have most of the charisma to succeed as a singles. But I don't think that if they weren't going to make a commitment to go long term with Jeff, you just can't replace that chemistry they had and the value they had as a team of legitimate brothers. And we always told a good story about them, and they're raised by a single dad, blah blah blah. and all true. So I don't. Again, this is part of this whole damn draft. Who did it at the end of the night? We'll talk about this at the end, but who did it really help? I think it helped. The only person I can think of right now, so far, obviously, is Punk going. Punk going anywhere is going to help that brand. That's how he was just getting ready to explode, and him going to Raw was a big get for Monday Night Raw, without a doubt.
Blue Chew. What else is there to say right now other than it works? We've talked about it for a long time on this show. You've heard it on other podcasts. There's nothing left to say. It just works. It's that online service. It delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost in chewable form. It's simple. You can sign up at bluechew.com. You get to consult with one of their licensed medical providers. They're going to ask you a couple questions. Once you're approved, you are set up with an awesome prescription within days. They're made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door. It's so discreet. You don't have to go eye to eye with any weird person at the Walmart or at any other prescription service you use. No, it's all right to your door, done online. No weird visits to the doctor's office, and you can take him anytime, day or night. So you can plan ahead. Be ready when the opportunity arises. You're ready to rise with it. Does it work? Hell yeah, it works. Trust me. It works for me. It works for JR. JR still going strong with Blue Chew at his age. It works for him. You've heard him talk about it before here on the show. And man, I tell you what, with Blue Chew, men everywhere are excited to see the postman. And not only are the men, but the ladies in their life too are as well. Blue Chew wants men rock hard. They told me so. That's their mission. And they're not going to stop until every man is bricked up like a brick house, till every 10 is pitched, till every rod is raised. Discover your options at bluechew.com. You get it. And we've got a special deal for our audience. You can try Blue Chew free. It doesn't get better than free, guys. Just pay $5 shipping at checkout when you visit bluechew.com. That's bluechew.com to receive your first month free. Bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring Grilling JR.
Let's talk a little bit about, the next match. But before we do, I want to ask about the pop, because when the Hardys come out together, it's a big reaction. One of the biggest of the night at this point. Does Vince in the back, when he knows, okay, well, we just put Jeff on SmackDown, and even though Hardy's carrying a non-ECW title, we're about to put him on ECW. Does he second guess that when he hears the reaction, or is he just steadfast and, well, this is the direction we're going?
The latter. He may have in his own mind, which I'm very happy I can't read. If I could have avoided a lot of this shit. But no, I don't think it changed his mind whatsoever. It was a feel good pop. What we're going to do is going to be better. We're going to do better.
It's just funny because, he says the audience dictates what we want, but even there in that example, you're like, nah, other way around.
Exactly.
Back to Vince on stage. He's going to reminisce about giving away $2 and $16, and he's laughing about a fan whose answering machine picked up. And then he introduces Ric Flair, who comes out, dials a number. They get Donna on the phone. She knows the password. She wins $100,000. And then, completely randomly, the ring announcer said the following match was an announcers only draft where the commentators, ring announcers, and interviewers are eligible. It's going to be Mickie James and Melina tagging up against Natalya and Victoria. Very quick match. And, at 2 minutes, Melina's going to sell an ankle injury after being shoved off the ring apron onto the floor. Mickey's going to get out to check on her. Melina is going to apologize to Mickie. They start fighting. The ref calls for the bell. And Adam Lee says it's a DQ. And you ask, what does that mean? And the ref rules it a DQ. And as a result, both SmackDown and Raw will get a draft pick because it's a double disqualification. So
yes, double disqualification. And we didn't mention that I worked with Adam Lee, and Adam Lee and I were together, which was another train wreck. God bless him. He has some issues, no doubt, and nice guy. And I love this football play, and he was 5'9" running back, survived. So
we should mention
guy.
When you said he has some issues. Some people are going to hear that and think that you meant like he had some sort of drug problem.
I think he had, no, I don't think that's not what I'm referring to.
He has dementia and CTE.
Yes. And so, that had not all come to light.
Right.
Therefore, some of his erratic behavior that was reported that he had, distant, isolated before a show, was just perceived as he's just weird. But the bottom line, it's nothing to joke about. The CTE stuff we're going to see more and more of that as we go forward in our lifetimes. But yeah, he had those issues, and the dementia is real. People that have family members that suffer from it know exactly what you and I are talking about. And so, but you never knew where Mike was going to come from. And that's the other thing. Mike Adamle, if I recall correctly, was a guy that Dick Ebersol sold Vince McMahon on. Or if he didn't sell him on it, he influenced the decision making. So, because Mike had worked for Ebersol doing NFL football and NBC back in the day, and they became pals. And Mike was a nice guy. He's a fun guy to talk to when he was, lucid.
It's worth mentioning too. Mike Adamle is a lot older than people think. He's 70 years old.
Yeah, he was older than me at the time.
And I just think a lot of times, people think Mike Adamle is a much younger man, but when he was out there struggling, I think he's having epileptic seizures at the time. And, he was diagnosed with dementia a few years ago. And because of his football days and knowing what we know now about head trauma, they've determined that he's probably a victim of CTE. So, I know that he's sort of a footnote in history because he pronounced Jeff Hardy's name as Jeff Harvey and a few other things that were just missteps. Mm-hmm. But knowing what we know now, it kind of feels mean spirited that, assholes like me were sort of, he fucked his name up. Well, no, he's like really struggling and we didn't know. No, we didn't know. And we got to wish him the best and all, seriously, and anybody else that suffers from those ailments, just maladies are bad. But Mike on paper, Mike had a great resume, but nobody says a damn thing about, do you have product knowledge? Right.
And Conrad, if I'm going to get a mortgage, I'm going to come see you because I know you have product knowledge regarding the mortgage business and that game. And you got to have that to be successful in business. You got to have product knowledge of what you're selling, what you're promoting, what you're managing, what world you're in. You need to know about what is that world. So, but Mike just didn't have that. He was not a wrestling fan to any degree, and certainly not a student of the game. So, and like a lot of guys that come from mainstream sports, they look down at wrestling. I don't know if they did or they didn't, but they look at it in a sense that I don't need to learn more about pro wrestling. I get it. There's a good guy, there's a bad guy, and they're fighting over something. That's it. So it's not that simple, obviously.
I want to mention at the conclusion of this, they just show the big screen real fast, and there's not like the randomizer function that we had seen so far. Instead, it's just, nope, Jim Ross is up there and it says he's on Smackdown. Mm-hmm. And they cut to you and you look, shocked, annoyed, pissed off, all that. And you're shaking your head sort of in disbelief and stand up and take your headset off. And then, they announce that Cole has been drafted to Raw, and Cole is saying he's ecstatic to be a part of Raw. He's called all but 2 Smackdowns, and it looks like you're maybe getting a little emotional about it. They replay the injury angle with Melina, and you're talking about it with, or Michael Cole and Lawler are talking about it. And then they go to you and you ask Mick what he thinks. And Foley said you were an institution on Raw, and you said, I guess it's time to escape the institution.
Yeah.
You wrote, we'll talk about what Meltzer wrote, but you wrote on your own blog, as many of you know, I was drafted to SmackDown Monday night in the random lotteries in quotes. Obviously that means I will be leaving Monday Night Raw and my longtime partner, Jerry Lawler. I'm not happy about this surprise development. I also contemplated calling it a career Monday night and not going to Houston to tape SmackDown. After speaking with my wife and thinking on this matter until 6 a.m. Tuesday morning, I've decided to do the right thing for the fans who care and the talent who care and begin my new assignment. It's been explained to me that WWE Smackdown tenure on my network is a high priority within the corporation. Allegedly, my presence is needed in that effort. Many are speculating about when I learned of this development, the same time those of you were watching at home. I should have detected something within the demeanor of certain individuals, either through their plastic poker faces or the perceived smirk that I thought I might have seen some of on their faces during the day. As far as going to Connecticut each week to do SmackDown post-production, that's not going to happen. Either Mick Foley can handle it or the WWE can install a DSL line in my home to facilitate the work. I will be missing working with the King, as the wrestling biz is, if a guy could count his legit friends on one hand, even after a 30+ year career, King is like a brother to me, albeit an older brother. We will remain friends no matter what. Our team has been corporately imploded. I believe that I've been strongly loyal to the WWE, no matter the hands that were dealt to me over the years. In my tenure, I have earned a good living, of which I am thankful. I will fulfill my commitments that I've made because, unlike many in the business, my word is still my bond. I can't predict how long my SmackDown tenure will be, but I can promise, no matter how long or short, that I will do my utmost while sitting at ringside. I'm not the kind of man who will phone in a damn thing. My sincere thanks to all of you who have supported me on Raw over the years. I hope I was able to provide you a memory or two, and hopefully we can create new memories now on SmackDown. Based on my professional experience, I look forward to each broadcast and treat each as potentially my last, which helps me motivated. So with that said, we begin another chapter in my crazy life in the unpredictable world of wrestling. I still plan on attending Raw in my home market of OKC next Monday, and I hear tickets are still available. Anyone have any extras? Boomer Sooner.
Yeah. People wonder, and I admitted this earlier, talked about this earlier, my being angry, and I don't know that anger is the only word I would use to describe this thing. I felt like I was a little betrayed, but the bottom line was the night before the draft, sitting in the hotel bar in San Antonio, the quote unquote TV hotel where the staff and talents were staying. I go down to the bar because we get in there on Sunday. And I have a drink with Kevin Dunn, the executive producer. He's a board member now, and he's had an amazing career there at WWE, without a doubt. Very, very profitable. And we're having a cocktail, which is not unusual, day before a show. We talk OU football. He's an OU football fan, been in my home with his sons, and, Jan treated him like gold, and as she should have, and she always would. And I said, "Hey, Kevin, I got a question for you. Is there any thought being given to separating King and I on Raw?" And he said, "God damn, JR. So you give us more credit than that." I said, "We got the equivalent of Madden and Summerall, John Madden and Pat Summerall, on our flagship show. Why would we ever think of screwing that up?" I said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "Well, there is no reason," type thing. So I kind of chalked it up that they're not going to screw with us. And I was wrong. So I don't know, Kevin. See, I always believe that Kevin lied to me. But there's also another side of the story, to be objective. He may not have known. It may have been an overnight decision made by Vince. He slept on it, got prodded. Well, JR said he didn't want to go to SmackDown. Oh, God, we'll show him that. God, nobody tells me what they're going to do, kind of shit. So that was my anger, was that I felt betrayed. And it would have been so simple for Vince to say, JR, Vince needs to see you Monday afternoon. I go to Vince's office. He says, "JR, I was trying to tell you that we're going to make some changes tonight. You may not like it, but let me tell you why we're doing it. I'm going to move you to SmackDown to work with Foley. You guys got great chemistry. Just want to freshen things up. We're going to move Cole over to Raw, work with Jerry. We think it'll be, I think it'll be the right thing to do. But we didn't have that conversation. It was all subterfuge all day. It's always, boy, is old JR going to be pissed off? I can't wait to see the look on his face. And when we were sitting there at the table, and the pic's getting ready to come up, they moved the handheld cameraman. All those guys, by the way, did a great job. I loved the boys. They got right in front of me like I'm getting a mug shot for headline news about the serial killer.
Clearly coming for a reaction shot.
Bingo. So I got the camera was in place in my face before the selection was announced.
So you knew.
Oh, of course. But I knew during the day. And where I was hard-headed and couldn't believe the audacity that someone would want to break up Lawler and myself off the flagship show after what all we had put into it and helped build it, and our voices are the soundtrack of that show for years, and some people say still is. I had a gut feeling, and caused a lot of the smarky ass little writers who all of a sudden became geniuses in the pro wrestling business. They wouldn't look you in the eye because their balls would not fit into a thimble. They'd have plenty of room left for both nuts to fit into a thimble. I didn't have a lot of respect for that. So the bottom line was, it comes back to one word: communication. If we had all communicated better, including me, I should have gone, knocked on Vince's door, say, Vince, what's the story tonight? Are you am I leaving Raw, or is Lawler leaving? What's going on? Can you shed some light to it? But I didn't do that. I was defiant, and I didn't feel that I needed to ask that question, because based on what Kevin Dunn told me the night before, what he said was logical. We got an established team with two voices that the fans have lived through for years and years. And remember, my announcing just didn't start at WWE.
Right.
I had a following for a long time before I got there. I was in the business, Conrad, 19 years before getting to WWE. And I was not always kind to them on air, because that was the tone and the tenor of what we were presenting, rightly or wrongly. Not endorsing it, that's what it was. I think some of those words stuck, and I don't think Vince never did like those. But nonetheless, if I had been more proactive and we just communicated about it, then everything would have been different. I just felt like it was a rib on me. And to me, it was not rib material. And it still is to this very day. And I was pissed off, man. I was on the phone. I was on the phone with my wife. God bless her soul for having to listen to my horse shit again. God, what a saint she was. Man, I miss her. So 6 a.m. And, I think there's probably stories out there where the McMahon plane was going from San Antonio to Houston. I didn't want to ride with them. I turned it down. I'll figure out a way to get there. And of course, I go on the road, I don't have any other clothes to wear. Nobody thought of that. Television attire. So I go to Men's Warehouse, maybe a good sponsor for us someday, and I told them I was in a jam, and I bought the old proverbial navy blue blazer and a shirt and tie, and to have something to wear that night once I decided I'm going to do the right thing and not cut off my nose to spite my face. So I was hardly at the building at all. So when I got to the building, nobody was real sure I was going to show up for 100% sure. That wasn't my intent. I had to get clothing. So real simple. There was no some kind of conspiracy theory here. But if I had been communicated with, I'd have bought another set of clothing.
Sure.
And then I would have kept it a secret. I would have kept my mouth shut. So I get there, and Vince has been looking for you. He wants to see you. Okay, sure he does.
Hey, before you get there, I want to ask, because you said it, and you've hinted around this before, talking about these little pipsqueak riders or whatever you call them.
Piss ants.
Okay. And then you said their balls would fit in a thimble. Who are we talking about?
Oh, Conrad, there was a lot of, I asked a writer this morning that I wanted some background on this situation, and he had already left. So I don't even remember who all the writers were that were endorsing it. But who go back and I swear to God, if I had to put a gun, you put a gun in my head, who all were on the writing team at that time? I could not get it.
Well, here's what I'm getting at. You have some fucking disdain for them. Where does that come from? I mean, you said, oh, now all of a sudden they're goddamn wrestling geniuses overnight.
Well, those guys, when the writing group, and there were some very, very talented kids there too. Brian Gewirtz, very talented. He and I never always agreed on everything, but he knew I was going to deliver what they wrote.
Right.
With everything I had. And I think he appreciated that. And, we're friends to this day in that regard, kind of made past our bridges. And as older you get, you realize, folks, that you can't hold grudges for fucking ever. Come on. I got nothing against these guys for what they did, because they were doing what they had to do to survive in their perspective. I mentioned Brian Gewirtz, very bright, extremely bright kid. He was the Rocks guy, and that was all good for me. It was all good for us. So, but those guys came in, and because they didn't have the product knowledge of bell-to-bell product knowledge, they focused on things surrounding the core. And so then all of a sudden, when that's a primary influence in your production meetings, is what can we do on the peripheral, because we don't have a group in here that has a lot of wrestling product knowledge. So we're going to go play to our strengths. So the show started taking more of sometimes a silly presentation. So if segment 3 is comedy, then and it worked, and we need to do more comedy next week, then more comedy next week. It's just, and I just don't believe that wrestlers are natural born comedians. Sometimes some of them are very, very funny, but it's usually organic, the best ones. So they wrote a different show than I thought we should be writing more often than not. I thought the ratings reflected it. We didn't have the Wild West of blood and guts and violence and aggression that we had in the Attitude Era. At least that's my recollection of it. But they got some success, and then Vince gave them the occasional attaboy. Then a lot of those guys, those piss ants, became bulletproof. And so, he's told me this before, the old man said, JR, I heard you had a little heart-to-heart with so-and-so. God damn it, man, you're going to break their spirit. You're talking about breaking people's spirit? Are you shitting me? How about during the middle of a live broadcast when you're in somebody's ear saying, say it, you son of a bitch. Say it, God damn it. That deal. What's that? What's that? Or you can take it because you're in the wrestling business. That's my goddamn point. Why don't we let these guys learn what being in the wrestling business is, so we can, again, appeal better to our core audience? So that's kind of what I thought. And where during the day, the guys would come up to me on a raw day and, hey, we're going to do this, or what do you think about this idea, or whatever. But nobody said nothing that day. So they were bad poker players. I'd have beat their ass playing poker. And so that's kind of what I mean. It's just, I don't know who all was on there, but look, that's their lifeline. They're getting their check. For a lot of those guys are just getting out of college or didn't make it in the mainstream entertainment world, or whatever it may be. This is their lifeline. Their lifeline is Vince McMahon. And so you learn quickly. It's like I told you before the show, Connie. God damn it, when you're going to talk to the old man, you better converse and not confront, because you ain't going to win, ever. Even if you're right, you're not winning. So that's kind of what I mean by that deal. They became a victim of the system. And then when I would have a confrontation with them, or I would say something to them, usually as a result of a talent coming to me and said, JR, I can't do this. Why are they doing this to me? I'm very unhappy. I'm not focused. Well, they're giving me plenty of information to say, well, Your Honor, he did tell me he wasn't focused. He did tell me he was unhappy. And so as a result of that, he may have been clumsy, and that's why this other guy got hurt. You can't do that. You got to look at the big picture and cover your ass. And that just wasn't happening. So, and me, hey, look, I wasn't the easiest son of a bitch in the world. I'm working every damn day. So, it's just it was hard, man. It was hard. But my biggest issue was just being misled. And was Kevin Dunn lying to me? Or did he not know? Or he was sworn to secrecy? If he was, he kept his word. Hats off to him. But I just didn't understand why there was no more communication other than it's a rib on JR. Fuck him. What's he going to do? Nothing. He's a wrestling guy. As long as he's booked, he's going to be happy.
So you show up to SmackDown. You've went by the Man's Warehouse. You're a little late, not for any nefarious reason. You just didn't know you were doing this. You needed clothes. So you make that stop off. You get your blue jacket like you like it. So you're color coordinated for SmackDown, and you show up. Vince wants to meet with you. You go in Vince's office, and
well, we shook hands. I have a new blue blazer on from Men's Warehouse. Looked pretty sharp. Looked like a chubby weatherman. And as I recall, the first thing he said was, I'm disappointed in you. I said, that's ironic because I'm disappointed in you. And what do you mean? I said, look, I'm sure you got good reasons to move me to the My TV deal and SmackDown. And I know corporately how important this television deal is to launch this second 2-hour primetime show. I get that. And I appreciate the confidence that I can help a brand. I said, but my point is, Vince, why couldn't you have told me? Why did this have to be so clandestine? Why did it have to come off feeling like dirty? Why, when I think about it, even to this very day, I want to shower. Why is it this way? And then, of course, well, we want to keep everything under wraps. And I said, Vince, who are you talking to here? Keep things under wraps. I've been keeping things under wraps here for years. And of course, he gives me, I know. So it's like, so to me, it was let's get a reaction out of JR. This is going to be funnier than hell. He's going to hate this. He's going to hate this, and we're going to love it. So that's kind of how I looked at that, man. I said, I don't understand. And, then he said, well, I'm sorry, whatever. But I did the same thing to my son-in-law. I changed his life all around. So it's like, what? He's making over $1 million a year because I signed him to his contract. Sitting on an amble case in Evansville, Indiana. I know what he's making. I'm still doing the payroll, even though your new head honcho of talent relations is supposed to be doing it. I'm still doing it. So how am I not a team player, and how can I not have your confidence and your trust? I don't get it. So that's kind of where we are there with that. He just.
And his excuse was, hey, Raw's already established. SmackDown has to work. My network needs a shot of fresh talent and big names. So we're going to send our top guy, Triple H, and our top guy, JR. And he's trying to position it as, you're here to save this thing and we need you.
Okay. Well, yeah, exactly. But that's not the issue. The issue is not that I don't appreciate that line of thinking. I hope that you're sincere about it. But I don't know that you are sincere about it, because I'm sure you talked to Hunter about moving over. And he's off the flagship show now, and he's on SmackDown on a fledgling network that's going to have less viewership than we've earned on Raw over all these years. So I'm sure he knew. But the point is always going to be the same thing. Why all the cloak of darkness around this thing? Why all this stuff? I said, I felt like your writers knew, because they would look me in the eye all day. Yesterday in San Antonio, it was like I had the plague. They're bad poker players. So that's my issue. Why did it have to be this way? I sensed, Vince, it was for your own enjoyment and for the enjoyment of your sycophants that surround you. That's what I said. And I said, I don't think that was fair. I don't think that was professional. And it was certainly unnecessary. I said, but I'm here to work, and you ain't gonna have to worry about me calling shit in. That ain't gonna happen. My ego's too big.
Let's go down the rabbit hole for a minute here. Would you classify your relationship with Vince, or maybe his relationship with you rather, as love-hate?
Yeah, I think hate might be a little too heavy. I just was for whatever reason, maybe because I wore my feelings on my sleeve, and sometimes I cared too much. You know, I said this before. You know, wrestling has always been to me a mistress, and sometimes in our dalliances in our life, our mistresses, our significant others can betray us, and they don't always love us back. And I thought sometimes that was kind of my scenario in WWE, that even though I love the company, I love my contributions there, my years there, over a quarter of a century. I love that. I love the money, probably the most of all, unfortunately. I was a capitalist. Sometimes maybe I was too easy target. Maybe there's a lot of things about me. You know, I know that I've had writers say that in private meetings and writing meetings that Vince would imitate JR with the Bell's palsy and the paralysis of the face. And if that's true, can you imagine if all those guys, several of them have told me that. So either they're all lying, or for whatever reason, he felt compelled to do that and thought it was entertaining. And of course, you know that the horse lash are going to come from, if he giggles, the horse lash are going to come big time from the gallery. So so that was the deal. You know, JR he's going to wear his feelings on his sleeve. He'll be pissed off. This will be funny. This will be great. And I didn't oversell it on that when they made the announcement. I didn't throw my headset down or sling a chair or, whatever. I just went about my business, but I was sure as fuck wasn't happy about it because, again, of how it was positioned to me, that I wasn't going to be leaving the brand. I wasn't going to be leaving Lawler. And so there we are. I just think sometimes he had an easy mark, and that was me, to get under their skin, because he knew that I was very susceptible to selling the shit out of things I didn't like, because he knew how I was in private with him. I had no issues saying that this is not going to work, or I don't think this is going to work, whatever. But yeah, I love hate. The hate word is just such a bad connotation now to me in my lifetime. I said this before, Conrad, you know, I don't have any more room in my carry-on to pack the negative shit. Just not going to do it.
Do you think perhaps the love-hate, maybe let's just expound on that for a minute. He loved the work you did, but he hated the way you did it?
Yeah, it could be. He hated what I represented. He told me one time, he said, JR, nobody's ever going to believe this, but you and I have more things in common than we don't. At the end of the day, all we are two rednecks who are living our dream in the crazy world of pro wrestling. But all we are two rednecks. That's what we are, you and me. And we'll always have that connection. Well, the rest of the story could perhaps be you and I are nothing but two old rednecks. ... And by the way, I'm not a fan of rednecks. So that may have been part of it too. But I just, the hate part of that equation is something I'm not comfortable with. I can tell you that when I didn't engage in renewing my contract with them at the end of March, which is another big snafu on his staff, because there's no way that you'd have my contract end a week before WrestleMania. That's stupid. He admitted it's stupid. It's crazy. It was a bad position. If somebody didn't point it out to him, or they wanted me to be gone and not have a chance to return, because he said to me, JR, God dang, if you stayed, hell, I was going to have you work WrestleMania this year, this WrestleMania. And I hadn't even been on television. So I worked 2 times in 2018. Well, that's a great deal, JR. It's a great job. No, it's not. It's not a great job. It's not a great job when you're sitting home and you're trying to battle depression and you're grieving for your partner and Jan had such a tough year. But I also think that his sympathy for me and his empathy for me got me a 2-year contract, which I didn't ask for, but I got it, and it was good money.
Let me ask you, when you have this meeting with him, and do you meet with him in person when you tell him you're leaving and you're going to AEW, or is this over the phone?
No, not in person. I didn't want to go to Stanford, so it wasn't required.
So you set up a phone call with him, and you sort of break the news to him. Does he get reminiscent then or over the next few days? Or,
Yeah.
sometimes when you have a big conversation like that, it's almost like an emotional dump.
He was very, no, he was very emotional in that regard, as was I. It's hard to explain. He's got a soft heart more often than not, but he doesn't want anybody to see it. I remember one time, I'm walking through the gorilla position and we have something really good going. The house is great. Everything's wonderful. And we kind of got over the hump, and, the 83-week thing was now just in the rear view mirror. And I was excited about going out and working. And I said, Vince, goddamn, man, what a night. I said, I bet our dads are really proud of us. And man, he got tears in his eyes. He screamed at me, God damn it, JR. He didn't want to hear that because it touched a nerve. Because he's been fighting, and I still think he is, to this day, of trying to still please his dad, Vincent J. McMahon. And I believe that. But there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with sons wanting to emulate their fathers if it's meritorious, if it's the fathers deserve it. So yeah, he's got a softer heart. But I think signing me to a 2-year deal. I signed a 2-year contract on Friday before WrestleMania on Sunday, and that was the WrestleMania I came back as a surprise and helped broadcast the Undertaker Roman Reigns match. That was my assignment, the main event. So, that's what he talked about this year. He said, well, if you'd stayed around, and I said, well, I just, I've got a great opportunity. I'm going to take it. And, it's the best paying job I've ever had. And we discussed that a little bit. He said, well, I can't match that. I said, well, you can match it. No. You can match it, but you won't match it. And nor would I advise you, if I was in my old role, to match it. Let him go. So we had good communication, and I got a lot of those text messages that I kept them, and they're very eye-opening. I'm hopefully that they find a home in a nice way, positioned correctly, accurately, honestly, in their next book that's going to be out in, ironically, about WrestleMania time in 2020.
We want to talk to you today about Lumen, the world's first handheld metabolic coach. Guys, this device measures your metabolism through your breath. Did you ever think they were going to come up with something like this? Isn't this incredible? It's amazing. It has an app. It lets you know if you're burning fat, your carbs. It gives you some guidance, how to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. And it works so easy. All you have to do is breathe into the Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fat or carbs. Then it's going to give you a nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. Man, I'm telling you what, technology has advanced so far. This device is where it's at. It's going to help you so much with your nutrition, with your diet, what you need to do to help lose weight. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time, and it's going to give you those tips to stay on top of your health game. Your metabolism is your body's engine, guys. It's how your body turns the food you eat into that fuel that keeps you going. So if you want to stay on track with your health this holiday season, go to lumen.me/grillingjr, and you'll get 15% off your Lumen. That is LUMENDOTME/grillingjr for 15% off your purchase. And by the way, Lumen makes a great gift too for the holiday season. We want to thank Lumen for sponsoring this episode of Grilling JR.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. I do want to ask though, since we're down this Vince McMahon rabbit hole, you look back on all the things, whether it was, him firing you after Bell's palsy or supposedly mocking you in the meetings. And he certainly did the Dr. Heine skit and had you join the Kiss My Ass Club and had you dance and drafted you here and told everybody but you, and would oftentimes put you in embarrassing angles in your hometown. And when you look back on all that stuff, would you classify, because Vince would always just deny and say, oh, it's just for the greater good. It's what's best for business. It's just good shit, blah, blah, blah. Is Vince mean spirited? Does Vince like to belittle people and humiliate people and just, as the kids say, flex nuts?
I think, unfortunately, yes, at times I've seen it, and I've carried out those orders from time to time. And of course, you just discussed, I've experienced it. I remember the only time, the things I have a hard time forgiving, that's not good. I have a hard time forgetting is my children were very upset. And when the Dr. Heine thing came about, because their dad had been in intensive care for several days prior to that little touch and go thing here. And I had 13 inches of my intestines removed, and they kept cutting and cutting and cutting so they could find healthy tissue, so I wouldn't have to have a colon of the bag. And that hurt my feelings. And then when Jan asked me a couple of times, why is he this way? And I said, I don't know, honey. He had 5 stepfathers, I think it was 4 or 5. He's had a rough upbringing, believe it or not. He's estranged from his own father. He's been raised differently. There's stories there that are just, hard to believe. And she said, I don't understand why he's doing this. You work so hard. You're loyal. You risk your own health to stay at work because you didn't want to be perceived as weak. Just like you told me stories about your own father. And my dad was that way. I could have a hell of a football game on Friday night. I guarantee you that if I did, Saturday at my house was the hardest day of the week for chores. He made sure of that. You got to suck them up, son. You're hurting, you're sore, you're bruised, whatever. Get your ass out there and let's go. So that was Dad, and that was Vince. How I felt about him. I might be wrong. So I don't know. It's just hurting her. It hurt her some, without a doubt, because she loved the energy that he had, and he was, he paid us a lot of money. But sometimes, Conrad, it's just not about singularly now. It's never about, it's singularly not always about the paycheck. It just isn't. So, and once you get lucky and you get to a certain level of income and savings and accumulation, it becomes less and less about that. I made sure when I went to AEW, I said, I want to know what kind of show we're going to have. What's the philosophy here? And Tony Khan was he had it down. We're going to have an athletic presentation. I love that. So that encouraged me to sign more than the money offer, which wasn't bad. But I really enjoyed how we're doing this thing. So she didn't understand that. And I said, honey, I can't explain it to you. He said, when we see him together, he's always so nice, and he's been accommodating, and he flies you here and he flies me there and this, that. And I said, yep, he could be as charming as anybody you ever knew. He can also be, maybe he feels guilty that he was too nice, and he's got to level things out. I don't know the answers. Do
you think part of it is, he sort of likes being the fraternity leader in this company? Like it is, you see this in like big sales organizations, like car dealerships, for instance. Those guys can be one guy at home, but then when they get to the office, they're a different guy. And it's just in that sales environment that you're in the rat race and you're on the wheel and you just got to keep it spinning. You find yourself engaging in conversations and hijinks at the office that you would never normally do, but in this framework, it becomes acceptable. Do you think that sort of culture inside WWE exists because of him and he's sort of spearheading it? I mean, this is the same industry where as a rib, guys would take a shit in other guys' food. And I'm not saying that Vince did that, but I'm saying,
no, you're right.
Perhaps he's just like, this is what we do. And, I'm supposed to do this.
Any culture that is fostered in WWE, any mindset, any atmosphere is going to have Vince's influence all over it, either directly or indirectly. Either he came up with it or he saw something that he wants to continue to perpetuate, or he just, believes that he's got to shake the ship up a little bit and go from there. Shake the, just reshuffling the deck. How many times have they reshuffled their deck? It's irrelevant. Now it's crying wolf. The draft doesn't mean anything because there's no brand exclusivity. And that was a reason part of the reason, anyway, Conrad, was for the draft was to massage these rosters, create new marriages, new storylines, new matches, et cetera, and keep the brands exclusive. And now it's just not that way. There's this rule. We just made this rule up today, but we got this rule where you can go back on another brand and you're a wild card or whatever the hell they call it. I'm not sure, but nonetheless, bet your ass on this. At the end of the day, the atmosphere in WWE, good, bad, or indifferent, stimulates from the head man. End of story.
Let me ask about this particular draft incident. Of all the things that he's done, he being Vince, pronouns pal, to try to humiliate you or belittle you or whatever, where does this one rank as far as really chapping your ass?
Probably number one. It may be a tie with the Dr. Heine thing because nobody really knew in WWE how badly I was, how sick I was, how serious it was. I had a perforated intestine that I was poisoning myself. That's why I was having all those ridiculous stomach aches. But I wouldn't stay home or wouldn't, get it checked out because I was afraid of what I might find out. And then I also didn't want to be perceived as, I already had enough strikes against me because of my heritage and my physical issues, from as far as my Bell's palsy and, where I was raised. So I talk a little differently than some folks. So I don't know, man. The Dr. Heine thing was right there because of that, and it really upset my family. I don't think my kids quit watching Raw a long time ago, even when I was on it, or after I left, they sure didn't watch it. And I don't think they probably couldn't find my TV in Oklahoma. I think that's a state law or something. Don't know. So I think Dr. Heine was got to be right there with it. Dr. Heine was mean-spirited. I get a call that day, and I'm on morphine. I just got home, and I get a call, and my little Jan, God bless her, she says, "Honey, it's Vince." Like, oh, okay. So here I am. I'm loaded. I am loaded. Pain meds. I got staples and sutures and all in my stomach, and all this surgery, these drain things to drain my carcass. Horrible. He said, "Hey pal, just want to see how you're doing." I didn't get a chance to answer it. He said, "Just wanted you to know that we got a little something special for you tonight on Raw. I think you're going to really like it. You're going to really enjoy it." And so, okay, oh, good, thanks, whatever. I thought it was going to be like get well to JR, right? He's home. JR's out of the hospital. Because I blew up their .com, the WWE.com, was people were concerned about JR, which I appreciate, still do, by God. But that was so then the lucky part for me was my I fell asleep before the end of the Raw. In the 11th segment of Raw, the money segment that talents would fight over to be in the closing segment of Monday Night Raw when it was a 2-hour show, not a 3-hour marathon, because by then you're fatigued, physically and mentally. That was the prime time. That was it, man. That was the money segment. So I'm thinking if they're going to do anything with me, it sure won't be the last segment of the show. Boy, was I wrong again. And of course, they had Nurse Slobberknocker, and of course, the payoff was pulling a mannequin head that's allegedly to resemble me out of my ass. What did that mean, Conrad?
Yeah, let's talk about what Michael Cole is being written about in the Observer. Jim Ross for Michael Cole is on paper a plus for SmackDown, but there are real questions now as to the longevity of Ross and the company as Ross has publicly stated he contemplated quitting on Monday because of how it was handled and not going to Houston for the first Smackdown taping. He says more than anyone else, he was taking the move harder and more personally, like it was a slap in the face, even though he was told it was not. It's no secret the strange McMahon-Ross relationship has its ups and downs, and that Vince loves to humiliate Ross. Several in the company who contacted us after the show were hardly talking about this as a business move, but essentially Vince getting to humiliate Ross on TV because Ross made it clear he didn't want to move brands. Ross has about a year and a half left on his contract. It's also become a running joke because McMahon has taken Ross off Raw probably half a dozen times, always as a quote permanent move, but then gets frustrated with the replacement and brings him back. But the company's been about youth and faces, and with Lawler at 58 and Ross at 56, it's a lot easier to blame the ages of the announcers on a product being stale than years of ignoring developmental and cutting off every rising star and then blaming them for not getting over. There were already people joking that in a few months, McMahon will change his mind again, and then Ross will be back on Raw and probably book another double switch at next year's draft. The running joke is the last few times Ross has been tried to be replaced by McMahon on Raw, the only people who believed he really did replace him were McMahon and Ross. As everyone else knew, he'd wind up calling Ross back. He would fast forward I want to fast forward what we're discussing here, because he says later in this article, two former major insiders within the company who work closely with both McMahon and JR, but more directly with Vince, contacted us immediately saying that Ross should have understood how Vince's mind operated. And by publicly saying he wanted to stay on Raw, it was almost a guarantee, because of how Vince loves to humiliate him, that he'd make the move in the manner he did. And there was reportedly an exchange after the show where Ross turned down the invitation to fly on the corporate plane from San Antonio to Houston for Smackdown, which he was suddenly broadcasting, and where McMahon told him that he risked his life on the show and how he ruined his son-in-law's life, all for the company.
Jeez.
Another key reason why this could fall apart is the nature of Raw and Smackdown. Raw goes live and that's it. Smackdown is taped on Tuesday, but then on Wednesday, Cole and Foley go into the studio and clean up the show's soundtrack and insert new things that may have been decided upon. It's no problem because both live in the New York area, which is why the Smackdown color commentator has always been New York based, whether it was Taz or JBL or now Foley. With Ross living in Oklahoma and having a major outside business, running a restaurant and about to open a second restaurant, the extra day on the road every week and the idea of flying from Smackdown City to New York immediately after and then back to Oklahoma is a major change. Although the wrestlers still have their tougher schedules, Ross publicly on his website said he absolutely wouldn't do it. And presumably the WWE has agreed to do the DSL line so he won't have to make the travel. When do you discuss the logistics of, cause I love the way you just fucking drew a line in the sand in your blog. I ain't fucking going.
No, I wouldn't. Oh, I'm not going to do it because it's unnecessary. The only thing that would have made me do that, and I don't know if there's anything other than I don't want to breach my contract. And so then I lose my royalties. That was another nice thing about leaving with class and dignity. My final with them this year was I left with some class and dignity. I didn't screw them around. I didn't do anything. When it came, my contract expired. I let them know several weeks in advance, I'm not going to negotiate another contract. And so I think at that time, well, we can't pay you I can't pay you what I paid you last year. He told me that. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Vince, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I'm not renewing at any number. Let's agree to that we're going to move our separate ways and try to reflect back on the positive things that we did together and the things we built. People understand, man, the talent roster was in a bad way in the mid 90s and the company was on the verge of a bankruptcy for real. This ain't me being angry. It's not talking out of school, but we got talent in, we changed the dynamic in the locker room. We facilitated the opportunities for some talent, including son-in-law, who I had great confidence in, and I still do as a talent. So, it just wasn't going to happen. But the ISDN line, that's an interesting thing. the show was edited, and then they would come back in and I'd do fixes. So bridge this gap, or fill this 8 seconds in, or we had to make an edit here. So there's 12 seconds. This match is not going to be there. So you got to change your out and your in. That can all be done just like you and I are doing it right now.
Remotely.
Talking.
Yeah.
And remotely. And so it just didn't make any sense. I said, Vince, God damn, it's going to be expensive. It's going to be more wear and tear, and it's unnecessary. Now, the only thing I didn't plan on was I'd sit by my phone until I got smart and realized these guys are not going to be ready to do wild lines until the show is edited. That's going to be sometime in the middle of the night. And I don't mean that as an exaggeration or an embellishment, a wrestling embellishment. It's sometimes 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And more often than not, it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning of my time. So they'd either call me or text me or whatever and say, we're going to start at the top of the hour, or you ready to go, blah, 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 whatever. And so then I would wake up and have a coffee or whatever and come do my wild lines. But there's no reason to make all that travel and incur all those expenses whatsoever. So I wasn't going to do it. Now, would I have done it till my contract expired and moved on? Probably would have done that, because I, again, don't want to breach my contract. I used to tell them that. God damn, don't breach your contract so your royalties are suspended. That's stupid.
All right. So next up, believe it or not, McMahon is going to be on stage with Great Khali. I can't believe that's a real thing, but here he is, and he's going to hold up the new Rock DVD. He calls somebody else. They answer. McMahon says, who is this? And the guy says, wrong number, and hangs up, which is tremendous. They call a new number. Justin answers. He knows the password. He wins 100K. Here is what we've been promised. Edge and John Cena. Cena winds up winning by count out about 7 minutes in. And afterwards, Batista meets Edge on the ring apron and beats him back into the ring, takes him down with a clothesline. And the next Raw draft pick is revealed. It's Batista. Batista is there for the reaction shot. Cena looks at Batista with big eyes. Edge smiles and waves goodbye to Batista. Fun little way to wrap the show up here, or at least for the world title perspective. We've got Vicky and Edge sharing a laugh, over this whole situation with Batista being drafted. And next up, we've got MVP and Tommy Dreamer. Tommy Dreamer's going to have Colin Delaney, friend of the show, in tow. And MVP is going to win rather quickly, about 2 minutes. And then another SmackDown pick. This one is Umaga. And Adam Lee is going to start talking about how Umaga is bulldozing through opponents on SmackDown. And you said, that's a snappy segue.
Oh, what a dick. Speaking of Blue Chew.
Yeah. You were not happy in that moment. Cole and Lawler then recap the draft so far. You and Foley are talking about acquiring Hardy, and Foley says, I know this is a big change for you, but I hope it's one you'll grow to appreciate. Then we've got JBL. He's going to smash Kofi Kingston in about 3 minutes with a clothesline from hell. And then Kane, who previously was on ECW, is going to be drafted to Raw. Vince is back out for another big money giveaway. Vanessa answers the phone. She's actually at the show. Oddly enough, the camera finds her almost immediately. And she wins. And the 5 wrestlers from Raw who are going to be in this main event battle royal are CM Punk, John Cena, Kane, Batista, and Triple H. They're all wearing red t-shirts. ECW's group is Shelton Benjamin, Chavo Guerrero, Miz, John Morrison, and Matt Hardy. And then SmackDown is being represented by Big Show, Great Khali, Jeff Hardy, MVP, and Edge. And they're of course wearing blue shirts with the SmackDown logo. So, the winner here, the winning show, is going to get 2 draft picks. It comes down to Show and Edge versus Cena and Hunter. Eventually, Edge is the winner representing SmackDown. So the first SmackDown draft pick is Mr. Kennedy. And the second draft acquisition is Triple H. And Vince makes the final call of the evening, and the winner declares, I love you, Vince. And then a piece of the set falls and sparks begin to fly, and McMahon collapses at the shock of it all. And then another part of the set tips over, and wrestlers run over trying to protect McMahon from the structure that fell on him. And they lifted it as medics pull Vince out from under it. And it looks a little silly, as it wasn't actually lying on Vince, but more or less protecting him from more stuff that might fall. and they zoomed in as medics carefully turn him over while isolating his neck. And Hunter's asking, is he okay? Is he conscious? And the medics say he's breathing, but he's not conscious. And Triple H says he's afraid if they move anymore, that this thing could collapse. They stretcher Vince away, and he asks what happened. And he calls out Paul, when the show ends. So that's the reference for when he's talking to you about, God damn it, I risked my life.
Yeah, I watched that angle. You didn't risk shit.
The rating
it was one of those sports entertainment angles. It wasn't a wrestling angle because they had nowhere to go. It was a sports entertainment angle that somebody pitched that involved him, that let him be the focus, and the writers got their way, and then they took another little step, baby step, for the little balls that fit in little thimbles to ingratiate themselves to the chairman. So, a simple deal. They played that game every day that they're in business. Ask anybody that's got the balls to answer you. So yeah, he risked his life. Well, okay.
The episode got a 3.4 rating. 1 year prior, without the $1 million giveaway, they did a 3.71. In 2004, the draft did a 4.53. In 2002, it did a 5.41. So you can see the trend of where we are.
Yeah. It's not working.
And this continuation, I feel like, there's some correlation here. You go back to like the summer of 2007. And of course, we're talking about the summer of 2008. The summer of 2007 is when the Chris Benoit tragedy happened. We'll talk about that another time. I don't want to get sidetracked, but the payoff from that Raw was supposed to be who killed Vince McMahon, who killed Mr. McMahon, because they blew up the limo. And Bruce Pritchard has said the story was famously, Vince wants to get himself off TV. I can't be on TV if I'm dead. So we'll sort of redo the whole who shot JR thing from Dallas a generation before, and we'll just kill off the Mr. McMahon character. Well, obviously when someone really dies, they can't continue that angle anymore. So they just shelve it. Fast forward a year, they're coming up with another way to fucking kill Vince. This is a little fucking silly at this point, is it not?
Yeah, extremely silly, because he's dead, but he's walking to the arena. He's dead, but he's taking the limo to the hotel. So if you're going to be dead and you're going to be true to the school of wrestling booking, then they wouldn't see you at all. Yeah. I mean, dead is pretty goddamn fine. And as far as the other remark there about who shot JR, it's easy, folks. Vince shot JR. Easy. Case closed.
Yeah, there you go. That really should have been the issue, or the title of today's show. I think a lot of people were looking forward to this because they know that Raw meant so much to you and it was taken away from you. But maybe what they missed was it was the fact that they didn't think that you could be trusted. And it was another example of him trying to quote unquote, get over on you and humiliate you or belittle you, or everybody can be trusted but you. And everybody's in on the ha-ha, as you like to say. And I think Bruce has said that maybe Vince did this type of stuff to you because, to use a wrestling phrase, you quote, sold it. And had you just rolled with the punches and not acknowledged it and not sold it, to use a wrestling term, then maybe some of this wouldn't have happened. And you categorize that as saying you were just too honest and forthright and cared too much.
I cared too much. And again, you love the business, man. I still do. But sometimes, again, it doesn't love you back. And that's a classic example of that deal. I just felt I didn't deserve that type of treatment. And look, somebody listening today could say, but God dang, JR, you're making all that money. I was making good money. And I've always appreciated that. And in this process, I should have never, I tried to promote the show in my blog by the unpredictable nature of that draft of 2008. And I was just honest by saying, I hope I don't leave Raw. And it was true. It was a true statement that I was sharing my feelings with the fans. And little did I know that, you can bet. You think Vince read my blog? Hell no.
But
absolutely not. But somebody did.
Oh, Thimble Nuts did.
Thimble Nuts did it, and they wanted to make sure that he knew. And then it's like, and I could even say, it sounded like JR so done a challenge, boss. So then you hear this slurping sound. It's just, whatever that fellatio word is, that's what you're getting.
Join us next week when we sit down and we evaluate the good old days. We've talked a lot about more modern era WWE recently. We're going to get in our Wayback Machine next week, and we're going to talk about the Great American Bash from 1990 and what a historic show that was. It's the crowning of Sting. Most people remember Sting's outfit more than the actual match, but the match is a hell of a match. It's your main event. Ric Flair, unbelievably, losing to Sting. Finally, it feels like this was supposed to happen years prior, but it finally pays off here. Of course, I am at Hey, it's Conrad. He is at JR's BBQ, and we are out of time. We'll see you next week right here on Grilling JR with Jim Ross. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what AdFreeShows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-Free Shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that AdFreeShows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. AdFreeShows.com.